Welcome to Good Libations, which is our show about mixology. And we know it's important to make truly innovative, interesting drinks with our own flourishes. And today we're going to make a very interesting drink, I personally think. I call it the Basil Rathbone. Some people call it a Pineapple Express. And I cannot entirely take credit for this drink. An establishment, in fact, an upscale establishment in Claremont, basically came up with this drink, but I've tweaked it a little bit to give it my own individual flourishes and touches. So we're going to go ahead and proceed to make the drink. And this is actually a drink that we pour in this style of a glass, which is generally used for pouring microbrews like ales, but it displays it beautifully. And it's a drink that's over ice, but I am going to use the shaker to prepare it, and then I'm going to divest it into the actual glass after I fill it with ice. So anyway, we're going to proceed on ahead and do all the steps that we need to do to make this drink correct. And as soon as the shaker parts company like it's supposed to, I'll go on ahead. And first of all, I'm going to put the basil in the bottom, and then we're going to muddle it. Boy, that smells good. And we're going to tare it a little bit so we get an advanced production of oils and an infusion of oils into the shaker and thus into the beverage. So after I get a sufficient amount in there, because we want it to be good, not too subtle, then I'm going to go ahead and start muddling it. And this drink requires spiced rum. Now, some people like, and I normally do not tout brands, but some people like Captain Morgan. I don't especially care for Captain Morgan. I use Sailor Jerry because it's more complex, and it doesn't have so much residual sweetness as Captain Morgan. And it's kind of one of those necessities where with this drink you have to mention that, much like when I talked about Pim's Cup and about Chartreuse Green Liqueur. So we're going to go ahead and put a good amount of spiced rum in the shaker here. In fact, we're going to use it all up because there was not much in there. And I'm going to go ahead and proceed muddling the basil. And again, I'm going to use a fake muddler because I want people to realize that making truly fine drinks should not be out of your reach. You don't have to run down to Williams Sonoma or to a bar supply place and pick up fancy barware in order to make good drinks. And with this, we want to use a little bit of power to not pulverize this, but to bruise it nicely. And then after that, we're going to add pineapple juice, which is another ingredient in this drink. And I made my life easy for once, and I actually divested the large container of pineapple juice into a small container. Lighter to tote that way. So we're going to put some pineapple juice in. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the fresh lime in. And these limes are pretty soft, thank goodness, but if it wasn't soft, you could roll it across the cutting board a bit more to get the juice to extract better. And if a lime is really recalcitrant, you can stick it in a microwave for about 8 seconds, and that will enhance the coming out of the juice. So we're going to go ahead and start squeezing the lime. And again, hand squeezing, not using a juicer, because we want the infusion from the peel in the drink, and you're not going to get that with a juicer. And it may be less convenient to do it this way, but boy, it sure makes a difference. And little things mean a lot. And we're going to go ahead and put in pretty much a full lime in this drink. And we're going to use one of the quarters of the lime as a garnish also. And I'm leaving a couple of spent shells in here so that, again, when we divest the drink, it'll really give us a beautiful infusion. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start putting ice in this glass. And I know some people find my style of getting the ice very ungainly and awkward, but as I always tell you, if you're doing a party, if you attempt to use an ice bucket, boy, you're going to go through that ice really, really quickly, and it's going to be very inconvenient. So it's actually better, you know, to either have proper ice storage in an ice machine or to store your ice, as I did, with a lot of cold packs. We're putting some ice in the shaker, and we're putting ice into the glass because, again, we're going to do some shaking and divesting of the entire thing into the glass. And then we're going to do something else with it, which you shall see. So I'm going to go ahead and shake this, even though this is not per se a shaken beverage. And if you so choose, you can make this muddling it in the glass, but sometimes at parties, the host provides plasticware because he doesn't want it to get broken, particularly if it's an outdoor party. So it may be a situation where you're going to need, you know, to use the shaker. And we're going to put some beverage, some basil in here in the beverage for appearance, but the actual basil, you know, dissolved well or blended well with the drink in the shaker. And again, we're going to squeeze in a quarter lime, and this is a little higher than I would like it to be, so I'm going to put some back in the shaker, because when you make this drink, you're going to put a top of ginger beer on it. And most of the ginger beer that we obtain locally is either Cock and Bull or Reed's, and this is Reed's. But, you know, any brand will do as long as it's non-alcoholic ginger beer. So we're going to put our top of ginger beer on this beverage here. And there we have it, the Basil Rathbone or the Pineapple Express. And this is really a good beverage. It's complex and it's interesting because of the spiced rum. And the ingredients marry together beautifully and make a refreshing drink. And it's a drink that you can feasibly drink any time of the year, whether it be, you know, the heat of summer, the cool of winter. So there you have it, the Basil Rathbone or Pineapple Express. And I didn't do any measuring, but you can kind of experiment yourself to the degree that you like it to be and take it from there as far as how strong you want it to be and so forth. And I don't particularly care for measuring. I like to free pour, so that's what you usually get from me. Sometimes I'm nice and I'll measure for you, but not often. But just to review, we're using spiced rum, Sailor Jerry, or another brand other than Captain Morgan. No offense to the people who make Captain Morgan. And then we use pineapple juice, fresh lime. We muddle the basil within the rum before we add the pineapple juice in the fresh lime. And then we put a top of ginger beer on it. And you could either use more or less. You could do a bit of experimenting with it. So anyway, we've made another lovely cocktail to enjoy, to try out at home, and to serve to your guests. And again, I'm Ethel Andrews. This is Good Libations. And we always want to emphasize, as we do at the conclusion of our program, to drink sensibly and cautiously. We want to give and keep a good name in our community by not overdoing and going to excesses, and certainly not breaking the law. And thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Good Libations. Goodbye.